Patty Hearst, the daughter of Randolph Hearst and the granddaughter of the legendary William Randolph Hearst, was a 19-year-old college student at Berkeley. Patty Hearst lived with her fiancé, Stephen Weed, in an apartment close to the university in Berkeley, California. On the evening of February 4, 1974, 3 armed members of a group calling itself the Symbionese Liberation Army burst into Patty Hearst's apartment. Patty Hearst screamed as the men assaulted her fiancé with a wine bottle. The SLA members carried Hearst's clothes in a nightgown out of her apartment and forced her into the trunk of a white car. Hearst's abductors fired a round of bullets as they sped away, followed by a second vehicle. The SLA then released an audio tape in which they called the kidnapping serving as the arrest warrant on Patricia Campbell Hearst. The audio tape warned in any attempt to rescue Hearst, as it would result in her being executed. The statement ended with the capital letters, "Death to the fascist insect that preys upon the life of the people." 8 days later, the SLA sent an audio tape to a local radio station demanding that Randolph Hearst fund a multi-million-dollar food giveaway as a good faith gesture. The SLA established its goals as closing prisons, ending monogamy, and eliminating all other institutions that made and sustained capitalism. In response to the SLA's demands, Randolph Hearst created a People in Need program and donated about $2 million to the cause. But the food giveaway was fraught with problems. In some distribution locations, rioting and fraud hammered the efforts. On February 22nd, at a distribution site in West Oakland, rioting led to dozens of injuries and arrests. In March, an audio tape was released by the SLA where Patty Hearst criticized her father on his efforts, saying, "So far it sounds like you and your advisors managed to turn it into a real disaster." In April, 59 days after Patty Hearst's kidnapping, the SLA released an extremely shocking audio tape to the public. In the audio tape, Patty states, "I have been given the choice of either being released or joining the forces of the Symbionese Liberation Army and fighting for my freedom and the freedom of all oppressed people. I have chosen to stay and fight." Hearst then announces that she has accepted the name of Tanya after a comrade who fought alongside Chi in Bolivia. The Hibernia bank robbery occurred shortly afterwards on April 15th. The robbery, in which netted the SLA $10,692, resulted in 2 bystanders being shot, one fatally. Different conclusions were made from the tape, deciding if Patty Hearst participated in the robbery out of force or free will. A month later, Hearst is in another crime scene, this time at Mel's Sporting Goods store in Inglewood, California. Hearst responds by criticizing the fascist pig media for painting a typically distorted picture of her and her beautiful sisters and brothers killed in the assault. She said that out of the ashes of fire she was reborn and knew what she had to do next. Hearst was arrested on September 18, 1975, at her apartment in the Outer Missions district of San Francisco. The prosecution was led by the U.S. Attorney James Browning. James Browning's theory was that Patty Hearst was not brainwashed, and she participated in the bank robbery and the crime at Mel's Sporting Goods willingly. Browning uses quotes from Patty Hearst for evidence. Patty Hearst states that she participated in the robbery as a loyal soldier in the Revolution. As for being brainwashed, this idea is ridiculous beyond belief. I am a soldier in the People's Army. Browning uses these quotes along with evidence of Patty Hearst's relationship with an SLA member to prove her guilt. After Hearst described being raped by the SLA member William Wolfe and telling the jurors, "I hated him," the prosecution produced a love trinket that Wolfe had given to her found in her purse after arrest. They asked her to explain why she would keep a gift in her purse from a rapist that she hated. Hearst answered lamely that it was like art. The testimony of the witness, Thomas E. Matthews, was also used by the prosecution to prove Patty Hearst's willing participation in the Mel's Sporting Goods crime. Matthews was a high school student kidnapped by the SLA on the day of the shooting at Mel's Sporting Goods. He tells the court that Patty Hearst smiled and laughed loading her gun and did not seem to be a prisoner, but seemed to be willing and even happy to participate. For Patty's defense, the Hearst hired attorney F. Lee Bailey and his associate Albert Johnson. Bailey's theory was that Patty had been a prisoner of war and had cooperated with her captors solely to stay alive. Bailey also used the theory that she was brainwashed, as Patty's parents requested, saying that Patty was a kidnap victim, who had spent 59 days blindfolded and living in a closet where she was subject to verbal and sexual abuse. Unfortunately for them, the theory of brainwash did not go over well with the jury. In the days following her arrest, Hearst had maintained her allegiance to the SLA. But by the time of the trial, she had changed her tune, which didn't sit well with the jury. Patty Hearst took the stand as a witness. She described her mistreatment at the hands of the SLA in grueling detail, following her attorney's instructions, but refused to testify about her experiences between the fall of 1974 and her 1975 arrest, leaving much to the jury and the prosecution's imagination. The trial of Patty Hearst begins on January 15, 1976, and on March 20, 1976, Patty Hearst is convicted of bank robbery. The verdict came after 12 hours of jury deliberation. Many juries ended their session in tears, but in the end found Patty Hearst guilty of armed robbery and use of firearms to commit a felony. Chief Judge Carter sentenced her to a maximum penalty on each charge, a total of 35 years, and a final psychiatric evaluation. But by the time Hearst's final sentence hearing arrived in September 1976, Chief Judge Carter had suffered a heart attack and died. He was replaced on the case by Judge William H. Orrick, Jr., who reduced Hearst's sentence to 7 years, but would not issue probation. He said he felt like Hearst was in no need of rehabilitation, and instead deserved punishment. Violence is unacceptable and cannot be tolerated, he explained. A Los Angeles judge sentenced Hearst to probation for her involvement in the Mel Sporting Good incident a short time later. But despite appeals filed with the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals and the U.S. Supreme Court, Hearst's federal conviction was upheld. She remained in prison and refused to discuss parole because she said it implied guilt. After receiving countless letters and petitions from Congress, President Jimmy Carter conditionally commuted Hearst's sentence in 1979. This ended her incarceration, but it was not until 2000 that she was fully vindicted. One of the many pardons President Bill Clinton issued as he left office was for Patricia Hearst. Now 62, Patricia Hearst states that she is still unable to shake off her past. She says it'll never go away, and things can bring it up like it just happened.